Imagine slipping on 20 rings of power, every single one from Tolkien's legendary tale. You'd wield enough magic to reshape the world or destroy it entirely. But here's the catch. Absolute power in Middle-earth is like Frodo offering Gollum a trust fall. It's not going to end well. Would the wearer become an all-powerful god, a new Dark Lord, or would the rings tear them apart, just like the One Ring slowly corrupted Frodo? Let's dive into this epic thought experiment, answer the internet's burning questions, and see if anyone, maybe even someone as powerful as Sauron or Gandalf, could handle this kind of power. Stick around, because by the end, we'll uncover what would really happen if someone did manage to control all 20 rings.
Wow!
We can't answer the big question without first laying out the groundwork. The 20 rings of power weren't just magical jewelry. They were key to Sauron's master plan for domination. Here's the breakdown. 16 lesser rings crafted by Celebrimbor under Sauron's manipulation. 9 went to men, spoiler alert, that didn't end well. 7 went to dwarves, whose stubbornness made things complicated. The 3 elven rings, created in secret by Celebrimbor without Sauron's influence, they were more about wisdom and preservation than control. There was Narya, the Ring of Fire, Ninya, the Ring of Water, and Vilya, the Ring of Air. And then there was the One Ring, forged by Sauron to dominate the others. It was essentially Middle-earth's version of a root admin password, letting him hack into and control any other ring wearer if they didn't have the will to resist. Think The Matrix, but way darker. With all 20 rings combined, you'd have the raw magical power of an empire, but the cost of wielding them, potentially catastrophic. The 9 rings of power given to men are already notorious for corrupting their bearers and turning them into the Nazgul, the undead servants of Sauron. Here's how it played out. The rings granted men great wealth and extended lifespans, but at a price. Over time, they became invisible to the living world and were trapped in the Wraith world, existing as puppets of Sauron. If a regular mortal man tried to wear all 9 rings at once, they'd probably fade into the Wraith world much faster. Imagine speedrunning Nazgul transformation. This guy would hit final boss mode in record time. But let's add the 7 Dwarven rings to the mix, which amplify greed and obsession with treasure. A mortal wearing all 16 of these rings would become a walking time bomb of madness. Finally, slap on the 3 Elven rings and the One Ring, and the mortal wearer would enter the Wraith world permanently, be completely enslaved to Sauron's will if the One Ring is in his possession, potentially go insane before dying in agony. In short, a mortal man couldn't handle this power. The rings would destroy him faster than Gollum could say, "My princess." The 7 rings of power given to dwarves were a bit different. Instead of enslaving them, they amplified their greed and love of treasure. This obsession led to the creation of massive hoards of wealth, but with those hoards came dragons. Think Smaug, betrayal, and ultimately ruin. Dwarves are naturally resistant to corruption. Unlike men, they didn't fade into race. But that doesn't mean they were immune to the ring's power. Instead, they became consumed by their desire to amass more wealth. If a dwarf wore all 20 rings, their resistance to corruption would help initially, but the sheer magnitude of power from the combined rings would overwhelm them. The 7 Dwarven rings would amplify their greed to world-shattering levels. The 9 rings of men would start seeping in with corruption. The 3 Elven rings and the One Ring would clash with their willpower, likely causing madness. Imagine a dwarf king sitting on a mountain of gold, deluded into thinking he's unstoppable, until something like a Balrog or dragon inevitably arrives to claim the prize. The dwarf would probably die, not from the rings directly, but from the chaos they bring. Elves, being immortal and naturally wise, were far better suited to resist the corrupting influence of power. In fact, the 3 Elven rings were created specifically to preserve beauty, wisdom, and life in Middle-earth. They were worn by the likes of Galadriel, Elrond, and Gandalf, and none of them fell into corruption. However, the One Ring changes the game. Even Galadriel feared the One Ring's influence, as she famously said, "All shall love me and despair," when tempted by Frodo's offer. If she, an elf lord of immense power, had worn it along with the other 19 rings, the outcome could have been tragic. Elves' natural resistance wouldn't last long. The One Ring has a corruptive influence so powerful that even the strongest minds can eventually fall. While an elf might last longer than a man or dwarf, they'd eventually lose themselves to ambition or despair.
What the fuck?
What if someone like Sauron, Gandalf, or even Morgoth were to slip on all 20 rings? Would they finally be able to control their immense power? Sauron, he already controlled the One Ring and had dominion over most of the 9 rings of men and 7 rings of dwarves. If he were to somehow wear all 20, he could theoretically achieve godlike control over Middle-earth. But even Sauron isn't immune to the dangers of overreaching power. Morgoth, his former master, learned the hard way that bending creation to your will often leads to ruin. Gandalf, as a Maya, Gandalf could theoretically withstand more than a mortal, but the One Ring's corrupted power terrified him. He outright refused it, saying, "Through me, it would wield a power too great and terrible to imagine." If he were to wear all 20 rings, it's likely he'd become a new Dark Lord rather than a savior. Could Morgoth control it? Morgoth was the most powerful being to ever walk Middle-earth, but his downfall came from trying to corrupt and dominate everything. If even he couldn't handle total domination, it's hard to imagine anyone else succeeding.
No.
Let's get hypothetical. If someone did manage to control all 20 rings without being destroyed, they'd essentially have the power to reshape Middle-earth. Nature itself could be corrupted. The natural balance maintained by Eru Iluvatar, the godlike force behind Middle-earth's creation, could be disrupted to such an extent that Middle-earth would spiral into chaos. The world could fall into shadow permanently, perhaps even triggering a new cataclysm akin to the sinking of Numenor. In Middle-earth, there's no happy ending for anyone who seeks ultimate power. Whether you're a mortal man, a dwarf, or even a powerful Maya like Gandalf, the 20 rings of power would destroy you, or turn you into the next Dark Overlord. Tolkien's message here is clear. The temptation of power, even with good intentions, leads to ruin. So, would you take the risk and wear all 20 rings if given the chance? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Mithril Mythology for more epic dives into Middle-earth's mysteries. Thanks for watching, and may the stars of Elbereth shine upon you.